Ready?
Yeah, you're now live, Chair.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first hybrid meeting of 21-22. My name is Councillor Nitin Parekh. Can I ask everybody to introduce first yourself, please? Starting from Norman.
Sorry, you want an introduction?
Yes, please. Yes.
Councillor Norman Stevenson, a member of the committee.
Dawn.
Hello, I'm Dawn Cowell, the Council's Director of Finance and Assurance.
Colin Cartwright.
Hi, Colin Cartwright. I am investment consultant from Aon.
Colin Robertson.
I'm an independent advisor to the fund.
Jeremy.
I'm interim pensions manager, Chair.
You're mute, Jeremy.
Sorry, Chair. I'm interim pensions manager, so I support Dawn in the day-to-day management of the fund.
Thank you. Bharat. Bharat.
I'm a councillor, member of the committee.
Keith.
Councillor Keith Ferry, member of the committee.
Joe.
Joe Peach from Aon, supporting Colin.
Richard.
Independent advisor to the fund.
Thank you very much. Okay, just 1 minute, please. I'm just going to put the participants. Right. Just in some notes before we start the meeting. Can I welcome you all to this hybrid pension fund committee meeting? Present. Okay, before we proceed, could I please remind all those present in the virtual meeting to put their phones on silent? Can I also refer members and officers to the published protocols for holding virtual meetings, including the following? Members of the committee should ensure they have their videos on all the time, but put microphones on mute unless speaking, please. Other members, advisors, co-opted members and officers should switch off their videos and mute their microphones until they are invited to speak. In case of a technical problem, the meeting will adjourn until the issue is resolved. If the technical problem persists and the meeting is incorrect, the meeting will be abandoned and rearranged for a later date. Members of the committee as well as the advisors and officers are reminded to use the raise hand functions to indicate their wish to speak. Part 1 of this meeting is being audio and video recorded and broadcasted, will be available to watch, listen on the website. May I ask all present not to stray into a discussion on part 2 appendices papers which can be discussed in the private session. Councillors and relevant members will need to log into the private meeting link, at which point the live broadcast will then also stop. Now I noticed Howard Blushton was actually on the other link. Can somebody contact Howard Blushton and ask him to, Andre, is it possible you can contact Howard, please? Andre, can you hear me?
I'll email him, Chair, if you like.
Yeah, because he's actually on the other line. I was on the wrong meeting actually. So if you can ask him to join.
We'll get him into this meeting.
Thank you. Okay. Let's start with the agenda now. Attendance by the reserve members. There are no reserve members. Declaration of interest. Has everybody declared the interest pre the meeting? Jeremy?
My understanding is they have, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Now, item number 3 is appointment of vice chair. Can we have nominations for position of vice chair, please? Yes, Norman.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose Councillor Thakkar as Vice Chair. Thank you.
Seconder, please.
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you. Is there Councillor Bharat Thakkar is therefore appointed Vice Chair. Thank you, Bharat. Welcome on board again. Item number 4, minutes on page 7 to 14. Can we agree that the minutes of the meeting held on 24th of March 2021 be taken as read and signed as a correct record? Agreed?
Yeah.
Any correct? Yes, Norman?
Sorry, I was trying to attract your attention. I just wanted to refer back to the attendees. Is there someone missing from the list of attendees? Is there not normally 5 members of the committee?
No, we're normally 4. We're always 4 members.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we're on item 4 minutes. Can we agree the minutes, please? Okay. Item number 5, public questions, none received by deadline. Item number 6, petitions, none received. Item number 7, deputations, none received by deadline. Item number 8, draft pension fund accounts for 2021, page number 15 to 54. Jeremy, would you like to introduce it in brief, please?
Yeah, I'll be very brief. Chair. The draft accounts are in the pack. The deadlines for completing the audit of the accounts are the 30th of September, and for publishing the annual report the 1st of December. The timing of this meeting being slightly early means we haven't finished the annual report yet, but we are working on that, and we'll distribute that to the committee once it's finished, and we'll be bringing it formally to the next meeting of the committee together with the report on the outcome of the audit. If I can draw the committee's attention to note 23 of the accounts, which is towards the back. It's on page 50 in the pack. This is the note around additional voluntary contributions. This is one that we're required to put in the accounts, but it has no impact on the other financial statements, as contributions are made to AVCs separately by a small group of scheme members, and those are invested separately, and we get statements. It's just that some of the providers of those AVCs are rather slow in producing the statements, which is why those aren't included. We'll be adding those in time for the audit as soon as they're available. The last one isn't available until the middle of August, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
Nothing else to say, Chair. Thank you.
Any more comments on item number 8? You can raise your hands to the participant, please. Okay, while that's done, I've got a couple of questions on page 15, Jeremy. It says 1920 hasn't been formally signed off. What's the current situation? Is it still not signed off?
Yeah, that's correct. There are a number of authorities, both in London and beyond, where their audits for last year haven't yet been signed off. In the case of Harrow, there are no issues with the pension fund accounts at all, and but until the auditors sign off the council's main accounts, they're unable to issue a certificate of consistency that the annual report aligns with the council's main accounts, and so that's the reason they can't sign it off. I understand that there are no actual problems with Harrow's accounts. It's just that Mazars' quality control procedures are taking an extremely long time this year. And no, I think there are staffing reasons at Mazars which have been part of the problem for that. I don't know if Dawn's got anything to add to that, Chair.
Dawn, any comment?
No, we met with our auditors earlier on this week. They have told us that they will get our accounts signed off within the next few weeks, but it will be very late. But they are still planning to issue an unqualified audit report. So, like Jeremy said, there are no issues with the report. It's purely a capacity issue with themselves. Great,
that's nice to hear. Thank you very much, Dawn. Jeremy, I've got one more question on page number 18. There's a typo there, I think. It says scheme, just under the scheme overview. There's a line for number of pensions are increased from 5750 in 2017-18 to 6180. Underneath the line, the number of deferred pensioners has decreased, I should say. Am I right? Yeah. It should be what decreased, not increased.
That's correct. You've made me doubt myself now, Chair, as to whether I've put the numbers in the wrong order.
Okay.
I'm just going to have a quick look.
Please.
Chair, I've joined.
No, it is decreased. It is decreased, Chair. You're absolutely right. That's just
okay. Yes, Howard. Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah, I said the same. I found the same thing.
Yeah. Welcome. Okay. On page 23. I'm just trying to look at my notes here. What I looked at is without the actual increase in the value of the investment, we would be actually negative. Am I right, Jeremy?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, the cash outflows were slightly less than the cash inflows in this particular year. That's really the impact of a bulk transfer made in respect to the public health staff, which accounts for virtually all of that figure. So that without that, the fund would have been pretty much in balance in cash terms.
Thank you very much. Any more comments on item number 8 of the agenda, please? It looks like there's no comments, so can we then note the report and approve the draft accounts, please? Agreed? Thank you. Item number 9, review of internal control at investment managers. The page is 55 to 60. Jeremy, you would like to just introduce it, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is something that you get every year. It shows the various controls that each of the investment managers has in terms of their day-to-day operational activity. I'm pleased to say that the auditors' reports in each case show that the controls are generally operating well, and that where in testing identified specific instances that they hadn't been operating effectively, there were appropriate management responses. One thing I would say is that some of the managers this year hadn't actually carried out an internal audit in the period 20 to 21, and instead issued what's known as a bridging letter, which covers the period from the audit of the internal controls up until the end of the financial year. And those bridging letters are all in order. Where the exceptions were identified, those are detailed in the confidential appendix. If members want to discuss those in detail, we'll have to go into closed session in order to do that, Chair.
So we'll do it later on, basically, if need be. Thank you. Any comments from the members or Edward? Yes, Norman.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, you did explain about these bridging letters, but why was there no report done in that? Yeah, I mean, was it because of COVID or was there some other reason? The example is the multi-asset credit fund in the London CIV has had a bridging letter covering the period of 31st of March this year. So it seems a very long period as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Jeremy?
Yeah, I believe the reason for that is COVID, Chair. That was the information we got from the London CIV, because the MAC fund, of course, our contracts are with the CIV. The underlying manager is CQS, and so it's the CIV who have the direct relationship with CQS.
Okay, Norman.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be the response COVID. But life goes on. These funds were invested. The markets have gone up and down, and everyone else has managed to report. So I really don't understand why COVID. I think we should be asking some detailed question of the CIV about that. Thank you.
Any question, Jeremy? Sorry.
We can certainly take that back to the CIV and report. But I'll report back once I've had an answer to that question, Chair.
Thank you. Howard, do you want to ask something?
Just a quickie, Chair, following on from what Norman was saying. If you have a look on page 57, we're waiting for 2 reports, aren't we? The latest reports, Pantheon and Record. Pantheon, of course, we're divesting. When are these reports, Jeremy, due to come out? I mean, are they way overdue? We can't sort of say they're COVID. They're for a period which is sort of fairly long gone now. And surely we should get something to tidy up everything before we sort of move on to civ matters.
Yeah,
Jeremy?
no, thanks, Chair. No, I have chased both. Well, I have chased both Record and Pantheon, and I'm awaiting a response from that. So again, I'll report that back once I've had a response from them.
Okay.
Thanks for the comment. Any other comments from any members, please? Okay, in that case, can we note the report, please, and move on to item number 10, which is on pages 61 to 74, Pension Fund Risk Register. Jeremy, would like to just give a brief, please?
Very briefly, Chair. This is a regular update. We last looked at the risk register 6 months ago. As we reported in March, the exit cap has been removed, at least for the present time, and so the risk around the conflict between the exit cap regs and the LGPS regs has been removed and downgraded. Other than that, there are no changes to the key risks which remain as they were at the previous meeting, and I think as the committee is well aware that a number of those, particularly those around the economic environment and so on, are risks that we can't ever eliminate. We can only have in place an investment strategy which mitigates that as much as we possibly can through diversification and monitoring and all of the other things that you do as part of the investment strategy, Chair.
Okay. Any more comments on this, please? Colin?
Yeah, I'm just going to say that in risk 9, which deals with manager selection, I think it'd be advisable to make a few changes to acknowledge the London Civ's existence and how managers are now chosen to a large extent by the London Civ. So it actually takes you longer now to switch managers than before. And you don't meet the underlying managers as often as you used to.
Yeah.
There's a few other things, and the London Civ gets it wrong. I think you shouldn't be held responsible given the government's forcing you to invest with them. So I think some new phraseology would be good. I would guess that Aon probably have a standard phraseology that other people use to deal with the London Civ, but I'm sure.
Do you have any suggestion for that?
I'm sorry?
Colin, do you have any suggestion for that? What can we use from your point of view?
I can do something and send something to Jeremy, but I guess Colin Cartwright's probably got something, or Aon probably got some standard phraseology.
Colin.
Chair, we can pick something up and send it over to Jeremy in the next couple of days.
Great, thank you very much. Any more comments? Jeremy, we noted this, yeah? Thank you. Any more comments before we move on to item number 11? Thank you. Item number 11 is on pages 75 to 98. Is performance dashboard and update on regular items, which is Jeremy, would like to just give a brief on that, please.
Yeah, again, briefly, Chair. This is the usual update that you get every quarter. The dashboard to the 31st of March shows that for the first time, certainly in my time here, and possibly the first time in many of your memories, the funding level has actually gone above 100% in this period. That's the change since 2019 is really because of the significant investment performance over that period. There has been a small downward shift in the liabilities during the last quarter because of a slight uptick in yields, which increases the discount rate on those liabilities. There's a small error in paragraph 10 on page 78, where with regard to the PERC report, it's the 1 year performance where the benchmark's been exceeded and not the last quarter's performance.
Okay.
And so if colleagues could highlight that. In terms of the valuation, the 31st of May position was included in the late material which we circulated earlier this week. Taking the May position, the fund value is now 995 million. The things that have happened since March, we've rebalanced equities by withdrawing 30 million, 10 million each from Longview, BlackRock and GMO. 20 million of that has now been invested in the LSIV Global Bond Fund as the start of the process to realign our fixed income investments. We're currently working with BlackRock and have been for some time to get the mandates adjusted and the various tax forms in place to enable us to complete the shifts, both of the fixed income moves between the UK corporate bonds and the active index-linked gilts into passive index-linked gilts, and also the passive equity fund move to the low carbon passive. Those will be completed in July or early August. It's been a slower process because getting the documentation in place has been an incredibly complex and time-consuming process. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, any more comments? Bharat, please.
Yes, thank you. In relation to this funding, which is 100.5%, can you just tell us how it will be impacted by, potential inflation risk and the impact on interest rate risk as well? That's number one. And secondly, this is not a triennial valuation, but this is sort of just for management purposes, I assume. Is there any action coming out of the fact that we are now overfunded, as it were?
Jeremy?
Right. The short answer to the last question, which I'll deal with first, is no. And the reason is precisely linked to Councillor Thacker's point before that, which this isn't the full triennial valuation. We haven't resubmitted all of the member data. We haven't done the analysis that's associated with that. It's a roll forward of the 2019 valuation data, taking account of market movements and so on since that point, and that's essentially what that value represents. But it does show a positive movement, and there will be no action in terms of the deficit itself until the next triennial valuation. But if the position were at its current level, I would expect to see an impact on employer contributions, but I wouldn't like to hazard a guess as to what that is. And also, I think it's fair to point out that markets can move in a direction which could change the position significantly, as we saw 12 months ago when the COVID outbreak happened.
Thank you, Jeremy. Richard, please.
Hello.
Richard.
Hi. Page 78, the end of paragraph 8. You've written no de-risking actions are recommended at the current time. I think that's a bit disingenuous to what we've done. For instance, the GMO, BlackRock, Longview. I just don't think that statement has necessarily reflected the desire of the committee to de-risk as things have progressed. And I wonder if that is endorsed by others.
Jeremy?
I think what I meant by that statement, Chair, was that no specific de-risking actions beyond rebalancing back to the current strategic benchmarks. And we've, as Alderman Remain has just identified, we have during April and May rebalanced back to the strategic benchmarks, and we're in the process of further adjusting the investment strategy. So,
Richard? Okay, Colin, please.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to de-risk, you'd be selling equities and buying bonds or whatever, but you haven't done that at all. So I don't think you have de-risked in any meaningful way. In terms of answering Councillor Thacker's question, if inflation goes up a lot, then everything else being equal, the fund would benefit in the funding ratio because it's got underexposure to inflation assets, as it were. So it benefits, but it's actually not today's inflation, it's long-term inflation that affects the pension fund. So it would be what's expected over the next 20 years, not what inflation is today. But everything else being equal, as you don't have inflation protection in place for 100% of the fund, you would benefit if long-term inflation expectations went up. everything else being equal. And that's a lot of other things being equal.
Thank you, Colin. Jeremy, do you want to comment on anything?
Yeah, sorry, no, thank you.
Okay, I've got a couple of items on. I think every year we plan a day meet the manager around November. It is not in our draft program at the moment, unless I missed it. Jeremy.
Yeah, that's correct, Chair. It's not in the program. If you know, one of the things that I'm keen for the committee to tell me is what they'd like to do on that front. You know, would they like which managers would they like to see? Would you like, you know, because it's obviously a bit of a tall order to try to see everyone, and we'll organise that. I'm happy to have if you and I have a conversation offline, that would
Yes.
That would be the best way to plan that. But you know, we and I can certainly write round and get a date in diaries now so that we can plan for that in November.
So that's fine. Can I advise our AO and our advisors to sort of suggest the names of the managers we would like to see offline, not today, but if you can like comment or inform Jeremy what you think, like we do normally by an email, and agree the number of managers we meet actually on the day. Yeah, thank you. One point I have is on page 89, where we give the proportion of all the investment we have. I think it will be a good idea to, I don't know how easy or difficult it is to have some ideas to what proportion is on ESG at the moment, because that's kind of hot topic at the moment. Is it possible, Jeremy, to have some ideas to what ESG investment we hold in terms of the total percentage of the total investment? It'd be very complicated, I assume. Jeremy.
I was just thinking what I was going to say to that. I think the problem is each manager has a very different approach to ESG, and there are some managers will badge certain products as being ESG. You've just agreed to invest you agreed last year to invest the passive equities in a low carbon equity fund. I think the issue is, what do you define by what do you mean by ESG? If you want me to say what percentage of assets are invested in ESG, I don't know if one of the Collins could help me out a little bit there. I think it'd be quite difficult in practice.
Colin Cartwright, please.
Yes, Chair. We are working with a committee and a journey on our ESG policy and on and how we approach that within our investment strategy. We have made a few adjustments over the last last few months actually, that will increase our participation in ESG topics. So as Jeremy rightly said, we've moved our passive index funds to a low carbon index fund, so that will improve the E part of the ESG and a lower carbon footprint. We've also, within our infrastructure assets, there is an allocation to renewable energies, which again will help us with the E part. We have moved some of our active equities towards the RBC Sustainable Fund, which again they have an ESG overlay in their fund where they incorporate that very highly into their process for picking stocks. So there are steps that we have done at a policy level that have moved us on that journey, but I think we have as the world evolves in that area, we will continue on that. On top of that, all of your managers and stocks will factor ESG considers into their decision-making process, but how far they go with specific objectives in that space will depend on their process and outlook, and that's where we've allocated to the RBC and the low carbon to help us a little bit in that space. But it is a journey we will continue on, and a work in progress for this fund, as it is for all funds and corporate pension schemes, because as this area evolves and becomes more into the day-to-day thinking, we will continue to evolve in that space.
Colin Robertson.
Yeah, so I was going to correct a previous comment I made, which I think Colin Cartwright was going to actually correct for me. I hope he was, about the inflation aspect. So I was right in saying that the inflation is long-term inflation. You're concerned about, not short-term inflation. So that's it. But I should actually point out that liabilities of the fund are totally inflation linked, and therefore in that sense higher inflation is very bad for the fund. I was really referring to if gilt rates went up, then that would be beneficial. But the proper answer, and I apologise for not getting the proper answer the first time around, is that if long-term inflation is thought to go up, then all the liabilities go up because they are inflation-linked liabilities. So that would not be good. It depends on what's in the asset market.
Any comment on the ESG reporting?
No, not at all. No, I agree totally with what Colin's saying.
Okay, Bharat.
Right. On the previous presentation by Hyman, he highlighted the fact that he's going to look at climate risk, or they're going to look at climate risk, and how that will impact on our triennial valuation. Now, am I right in thinking that the firms or the stocks which are very good on ESG have low climate risk and vice versa? Or is it that climate risk is totally independent of these things? If so, are we able to say which of our investments are climate risk sensitive?
Jeremy. Oh, sorry, Robert. Colin, sorry.
Yeah, I'll take that. They're not quite, it's not mutually exclusive, Councillor Thacker, that just because they're good on ESG, they're low carbon impact, because that's just one factor of ESG, and there's a wider range. We are able to start doing to do two things in looking at climate risk specifically in the portfolio. You could do some modelling around the impacts of climate risks, and we can Aon could help you with that on the asset side. Hyman's are doing that on the liability side, and there are things we could help you there. That is something that you could look at if you wish to. Other ways are a number of people are now, and I think the London Civ is doing this on your behalf on the funds that they have, are reporting much more on the carbon intensity of their portfolios. There is a caveat with that, in that the data is still evolving and is, you know, for instance, on our index-linked gilt holding, I see that elsewhere being proxied as global equities carbon intensity, which is a bit of a blunt proxy, but is the best that we have, and is relatively common approach at the moment. So it is something that we can improve on and keep going on. It is something that would be, as we evolve our policies, it was something that would come more to the fore. As we have noted in the past, this is a journey we need to go on alongside the council's journey on this as well.
Can I make a comment on that? I mean, I understand the problem we have, but at the moment, the committee has no idea what proportion of, I know we know individually, but we don't know what proportion of our investment is roughly. I know it's difficult to be specific, but we should have some sort of estimation as to where we are in terms of the total proportion of ESG we have.
Yes, Chair, that is something we can do. As I said, we've been working on a policy over the last year. That's the next part of evolving that policy, so we should pick that up as part of our work plan and work towards it.
Thank you. Colin. Sorry, not Colin. Norman. Sorry. I think Norman, your mic is not working, I think.
No, neither is mine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, better.
I just think it's very important that we, as a pension scheme, are able to produce some regular report on ESG and where we are on it. And I wondered whether perhaps Jeremy could confirm that when members get their annual statement on the scheme, is there any reference to ESG on that? Because there should be, or it's something we should aim to have. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy?
To be honest, Chair, I couldn't confirm hand on heart this evening that that there's anything on. You mean the members' benefit statements?
Yes. Yeah.
I couldn't say hand on heart that will be on this year's members' benefit statements. I would need to check that and write to the committee.
Please, yeah. I think next one is Joe.
Thank you, Chair. I think all my comments had really been picked up by others. It was really to say that we can do this, look into the carbon exposure, for example, and that's something we are doing with a number of other clients that we work with, and almost that gives you the baseline to then show your progress from that date forward in terms of the changes that you make, and all with the against the backdrop of the council declaring this climate emergency as well, and the commitment to go carbon neutral by a certain date. So that really gives you the baseline and allows you to show the progress. So it's a really valuable exercise to go through.
Thank you, Joe. Howard.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just on this topic. I understand that we are still members of the Local Authority Pension Fund Forum, and I think, Jeremy, you go to them. I don't know who else goes. I understand that they're putting through motions to make sure that every local authority fund should be termed as sustainable, which includes ESG completely. And they talk about other things, of course, they're all tied in, impact investment and all this sort of thing. Now, I've never seen us report back from the LAPFF, which we joined in my time as chair. Is this something, Jeremy, you could comment on, that all portfolios, things have changed so much, Chair, in the last few years, that ESG is integral now to what we're doing, and that's why I would suggest that Colin and Joe work on that, and that we work around that, because this is now de rigueur, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Jeremy.
I haven't attended any meetings of LAP in my time with Harrow, Chair, and my previous authority wasn't a LAP member, so I'm a bit out of touch with LAP's. I can't even say it. LAP's position on LAPFF his position on this, so I'll have to look into that and report back.
Colin, please.
Thanks.
Just to point out that ESG is environment, social,
governance,
sustainable, and governance. So if you're doing that, you would also show the voting records of the underlying fund managers, which is a fairly standard thing to do, as well as all the carbon stuff, which you would show. So there's two normal ways of expressing your ESG record, both voting record and carbon.
Sorry, Chair, can I just interject?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Sorry, Colin, to interject on that, because it's ESG is environmental, social and governance, and of course our social investments include housing and anything we might invest in, which I think we are now via the CIV. So it's all interlocuted, and I'm grateful to hear from Jeremy that he's going to find out, and so we can clarify the position once and for all, really.
Thank you.
Sorry, some ESG is mixed up. You're right, it's environmental, but environmental, the governance is the bit I was talking about, which is the voting record as well as the carbon.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item, please? So can we approve the draft work program subject to adding the meet the manager later on? Thank you. Now, item number 12 is any other business that are not notified. So we can conclude the first part of the meeting now, and we'll move on to the second part, and we need to exclude the public and other people from pension board, please.